You're listening to the Business Communicators, presented by IABC Houston. And now your hosts, Austin Stetton, Hattie Horn, and Thomas Bain.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 2 of the Business Communicators, a podcast presented by IABC Houston. My name is Austin Stetton, and I'm joined alongside my co-host Hattie Horn and Thomas Bain on this journey as we explore the world of communications and discuss the key issues and trends that impact our industry. Really quickly, if you're not following us on social media, we would encourage you to do so. Just search at Biz Communicator on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, we ask that you subscribe and hit the like button. That really helps with YouTube algorithm, so we'd really appreciate that. On today's show, we are going to dive into a lot of different things. We're going to talk this new ad campaign from Burger King. What's going on with that? Why are they supporting McDonald's? We're also going to discuss the election, but not in a way that you would think. It has to do with a corporate sponsorship. More importantly, we are excited to also welcome Allyson Neal onto the podcast as a guest. We're going to discuss kind of her journey as an author and what that means from a communications perspective. But before we get into that, we also want to give a quick plug for our sponsors, Pierpont Communications and Mykrantz and Company. If there's any type of communications work that you need done, we recommend reaching out to them. And they do great work, and we couldn't be more proud to have them support IABC Houston. But now on to our guest for today's show, and that's Allyson Neal. Allyson currently serves as the Senior Communications Manager for Reaching Out. She is a native of New Orleans. She is a Southern University and A&M College grad where she received a Bachelor of Arts degree in print journalism. She's done so much. She's an author. I think it's 7 books that you've written at this time. She's also really involved with the IABC Southern Region Board and just helping them out from a digital communications perspective. But Allyson, we're really excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Austin. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Of course, I admire you and Hattie and Thomas and all the great work that you all are doing. And I'm so happy to be a part of your show today. I'm looking forward to all the wonderful topics and sharing my journey with you as well.
Well, I know we're really excited, about having you. And one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on is, and I didn't know this is probably on me for not knowing this, but Hattie shared a post on LinkedIn, and it was a story that you were featured in from Black Enterprise about an author celebrating Black family in a book series. And I read into it, and I had no idea that you had written all of these books, about your daughter, your family. I think it's so cool. And, with the holiday season coming up, people are looking for gift ideas. And so I would encourage those listening to just click the Amazon link in our show notes, support Allyson and the work that she's doing. But what was the nexus and the background from you wanting to write children's books?
Well, I love reading, and I started at a very young age, just falling in love with books and novels and reading. So I always had this dream of just becoming a writer. But on my journey, I explored different aspects of communication. So I worked as a journalist for a while. I went to graduate school, and that's where I learned about corporate communications. And I was fascinated by it, and I developed a love for wanting to do that as well. So, but the writing was always still in the back of my mind. And so I began my writing journey by publishing a book in 2001 about my community where I grew up in New Orleans. And it's like a Black history publication. I interviewed a lot of the elders in the community, and it kind of put me on that path. And so I was already writing books and just really getting into publishing and enjoying the ride. And then when I started my family, I wanted to build a library for my daughter because some friends had told me, it's good to read to your babies while they're still in the womb and let them listen to classical music and all this other type of things that can enhance their development. So I went to Barnes and Noble, and I wanted to build the library. And I also wanted to get some books with some Black families and Black children so that she could kind of see herself in print and I really couldn't find hardly any. And so I was really disappointed, and I thought, wow, this is something that people are probably not aware of. And I thought about maybe, voicing my concerns, but then something popped into my mind like, well, I'm an author. I write, I publish. Why don't I just start writing some books and make a contribution to the lack of diverse picture books out there? So that's how it got started. I actually went online and found my illustrator. His name is Ron Florindo, and he lives in Manila. And I found him on Elance, which is like a freelance website. We started communicating, we developed a relationship, and we've been working together ever since. And so I made a commitment to publish a book every year of my daughter's young life. So she's 10 now. And so that's why the books kept coming, and I had so much going on because I was just writing one per year in case the the lack of diverse books never really caught on. At least she would have, this book in her life, and I could share it with other family members and friends, where they could say, hey, my kid can see themselves in this book, and they can read these wonderful stories and, just experience the joys of childhood. So that's where it started for me. And I've just been promoting it online and with family and friends, but it kind of goes through those, ebbs and flows cycles. So that's
Absolutely.
what.
And I do want to turn it over to Hattie and Thomas here in a moment, but really quickly, I just think that is such a special gift for your daughter, to be able to have a book about her and to be able to see that. I know you said she's 10 years old right now, so she's probably just now understanding, maybe it's been a few years, but she's probably understanding that these books are about her. And I can't just imagine 20, 30 years from now when she's reading those books to her kids and say, hey, your grandmother wrote these books about me. I think that's just so special. I mean, have you had any conversations with her about that process?
Yes, I have. As my daughter began to grow and she was, talking and walking, and she became interested in reading herself, I would tell her when I started to work on the next book. And I would say, Ava, I'm working on the new book, and let me show you some of the illustrations. As the illustrator would send me some, I would show them to her, and I would say, what do you think? Just to get her thoughts and ideas. And of course, she was very excited. And then I think one year I was showing her the illustrations and the way we mapped it out, and she just made a comment and she said, Mom, everything looks great. She said, but I think she needs some friends. I think you need to add this, and I think you need to add that. And so a light bulb went off, and I was thinking, wow, she's really starting to get it. And she's starting to realize that, these books are about our family, but she's also now looking at it from a kid perspective of, these are some of the things that I would like to see. So yes, she's definitely been a part of the series for many years. And as I've shared it with her through the process, she's joined me in writing. So she's actually co-written two of the books with me. So that was very exciting and very special as well. And now she's kind of doing some illustrations. We have another children's devotional that we're working on, and she has created a superhero, and she's doing some drawing and stuff. So it's been very special for her, and I think the books have really accomplished what I set out to do, which was just to build her self-esteem and her self-worth, but also emphasize the value of family and us having fun together and sharing our gifts with other children as well.
I think that is just great. As I was looking at everything, I did a little bit of research, and I was looking at books and how they were written prior to that. And there's not a lot of books that are written about a normal Black family life. And when I continue to do this research, I found that the first books that were published about Black children portrayed in a normal everyday atmosphere were actually written by a lady by the name of Eva Knox Evans. And she was a white author. And she did this back in the 40s. So they progressed ever since. But I also kind of did some research, and even with that research, in 2019, the main characters in U.S. children's literature, and this is statistics from the Cooperative Children's Book Center, 41.8% of the books written that featured main characters were white characters, and 29.2 were animals and others. And so I just think you are doing such a great job, and you are in a very unique circle who is really helping to show children represented who look like themselves and how they are portrayed, how they live, how their families are, that they're just like anybody else. And that is just a beautiful thing. And I was just really excited to see you at Black Enterprise, because Black Enterprise is like the premier resource for us when it comes to whether it's business, whether it's books. So it was a big deal. So I was just high-fiving virtually. So I am just really excited about you, and I look so forward to sharing what you're doing with others. So keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Yes, I hadn't really been made aware of those statistics myself until recently, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. There's an organization in the publishing industry that was established called We Need Diverse Books. And that's when I really started learning about the statistics and things. I think I just experienced it for myself as a parent, and also growing up as a kid. We had a few authors, as you said, that had some books where we could see ourselves, but it was just very limited. And so, like I said, I knew that it was an issue, and it definitely was a problem. And I just wanted to make a difference and make a positive contribution and just put something out there. And also, I wanted it to be a series because I was seeing more Black books come out, more Black picture books, especially when the We Need Diverse Books organization was established. But sometimes, the books, they're just like a one-off. You might buy the book. Of course, you're going to treasure it. You'll keep it in your library. But there are not a lot of book series out there. And that's what really captivated me as a child. Like, I was a Judy Blume fanatic. And so I was always waiting for the next one to come out because I was like, oh, that was so good. I can't wait for the next one. So it would keep me visiting the bookstore and wanting to read more. And so I just wanted to take a leap of faith and do that for my daughter and her peers by making a commitment to establishing a series so that they could have more books and know that more would be coming on this particular character. And so yeah, I'm just really trying to make that positive dent. And I'm so grateful for Black Enterprise for giving me that opportunity to be featured, because as you said, they do put the spotlight on Black businesses and entrepreneurs, and it's a magazine that I've been reading for many years of my life. So I was excited for the exposure, and equally as grateful for you and Austin and Thomas and everyone for just elevating the books in the series and talking about it and encouraging people to support it, because I think it's important not only for the Black children to see themselves, but it's important for everyone in our culture, in America, because we're such a diverse country, and there are people here from all over the world and all different nationalities. And I think we need to celebrate our diversity and just have our kids read about other cultures and people from diverse backgrounds. And also in my book, we had diverse characters in there. Once Ava kind of enlightened me, it was like, Mom, she needs friends. We started adding schoolmates and friends, and we make sure that they're from diverse backgrounds, and we celebrate other cultures. And so I think these books can do a lot to just continue to show our children how to live together in a family, but also how to live together in community, by respecting and being with others. And it's really how my daughter is living her life right now. It's not something that I'm making up. I'm just sharing our experiences as a family and also her experiences as a student. She goes to a very multi-ethnic school. She has friends from all over the world, different backgrounds and ethnicities. And that is just so heartwarming to me that
That's
she's
amazing.
living this type of life. And I
I
think that
agree.
we should continue to promote it, and we should continue to celebrate that so that the kids can, model these things as they continue to grow.
I'm going to praise Allyson a little bit more and give a little backstory. I think she's one of the first people I met when I moved to Houston 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago now, through IABC. And I heard her give a talk about how to use the different social media channels. And she ties her stories back to her personal experiences and beliefs about, make sure you're on the holy trinity of LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter as you're promoting your businesses. And she told me that, hey, I'm writing a book, and I think you were interviewing the illustrators at the time, and I was really intrigued about it. And so I think that your books are fabulous because they're real experiences. That's not like some of those books nowadays where it feels forced. Okay, well, we need to be diverse, so we're going to force this in there. Saturday Night Live made a skit about Frozen 2 with that a long time ago, where it's like, yeah, you're trying a little hard there, buddy. And so I've always worshipped him and looked at her books as very good to help broaden the thing. I'm still waiting for my signed copy, but if I get one, I don't know if I'm going to actually give it to the kids to read or to cherish on, the bookshelf. So it's exciting to hear that you're writing the series that kind of goes through there. As all of us as communicators, part of the thing today is, how does a communicator go about becoming an expert in writing a book, whether it's a child's book or a book for something else, so we can share our knowledge?
Well, first of all, I would be happy to help and give advice to anyone who wants to go down this path. I actually wrote a book myself on that. That's one of the books that I've written, is How to Write and Publish a Book. And I think that it's very easy these days with all the digital tools that are available. I write through Amazon. Because it goes immediately into their marketplace, and it's really easy. When I first started, none of these digital tools were available, so I actually had a book distributor that would get my books into bookstores, and I had to keep inventory, and that was very cumbersome, as you can imagine, working full-time and managing a book writing business. But now it's so easy. And I actually encourage professional communicators to write a book, because it helps you as you're putting out your messages. It helps you to establish community, and it also helps you to continue to share your knowledge. It's in a tangible form. People can use it as a reference guide. So I definitely encourage it if you're interested in it. I think it's another form of communications, and it's so easy. You can either go the ebook route, or you can do, a printed publication, or you can do both. So I definitely encourage communicators such as yourself to just, reflect and think about what you may want to write about, and definitely go for it. But they have so many tools. For example, if you become an Amazon writer, they offer templates and tools for you to actually craft the actual manuscript. They have templates for your book layout, your book cover. They have other self-publishing websites and resources out there. And once your book is available, I think that's the benefit of Amazon, is that once you've gone through the writing, the manuscript process, the editing, and it's polished just where you want it to be, as soon as you upload it, it's 3 to 5 business days, and your book is available in the marketplace. And then you can start promoting it. You can have people write reviews. and you can start sharing it with your community. So it's something that I really encourage, and especially now, I'm seeing more people who have a platform like yourselves. You have your podcast, people who have training seminars and consultancies. Many people have books now, and it's just like an extension, I think, of your message, and an extension of your specialty and your capabilities. And I've written a couple of communications books on digital communications and websites and mobile websites. And I think that those books helped me a lot, because in giving a presentation or a talk, then I could follow up with, sending people a copy of the book, or they could purchase a copy of the book. And I think it helped a lot of practitioners, such as, ourselves, with just basic, really implementable steps of things that we can do. And so I think that having a book is definitely a great way to continue to promote your messages. And I think it's a service to the community, where you're providing information to. So, yeah, guys, let me know if you want to get out there. I'll be happy to help you.
You said you worked in other parts of corporate communications. What was your expertise? What do you consider your expertise when you were
In
working in corporate?
corporate,
Yeah.
I think it was digital communications. That's where I was always flourishing, with websites, internal social media. I was always working with something with digital communications, and I actually really enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the format, because it's easy, it's flexible, you can make quick changes. It's also very visible, with the imagery and the video. So I really love digital communications, and I'm really excited to see where it will go in the future. Like, you guys have this podcast. I think it's wonderful, because so many people are developing the podcast and the digital shows where they can continue to share expertise and content. So I think that all of this is just an extension and the evolution of our craft. And yeah, that's where I was, and that's where I definitely want to continue, because I know as we move forward with the pandemic, it has changed things fundamentally. And I definitely want to continue to work in digital communications and see what the future of that will be.
I think it's really great what you're doing to not only share your expertise and your experiences in life, but also, to build your personal brand. I think that's incredibly powerful, and I think that anyone watching this on YouTube or listening to this podcast on iTunes or Spotify, know that your brand does matter. If you want to continue to find that next job, or maybe pivot to a new career, having your personal brand, letting other people know about it, is so important. And it's okay to brag on the good work that you're doing. I think that's so important. But Allyson, I do want to pivot back to kind of your book, and when it comes to representation, because I remember growing up, I read as a kid, Berenstain Bears, the Hardy Boys. I remember my sister read Nancy Drew. But I grew up in, the Woodlands, which is just a town north of Houston, and there's not a lot of diversity there. We always joked around that, the Woodlands, it's pretty diverse. You've got blondes, brunettes, the occasional redhead or two at our high school, but that was about it. And in 2018, my roommate, who's from Vietnam, was so excited when Crazy Rich Asians came out, and that was a box office success, made over $230 million globally. He was so proud because it was the first movie, and he told me this, it was the first movie that he had seen people that look like him that were the stars of the show. And you mentioned it earlier, Hattie mentioned it as well with the statistics. At the end of the day, representation does matter. It matters for not only people that are adults, but kids growing up and seeing people that look like them, having heroes that look like them. Why was it so important for you to not only, you mentioned it earlier, but instead of complaining about the lack of books that you saw at Barnes & Noble, why was it so important for you to take it on and say, hey, look, I'm not going to be complacent. I think representation matters. I want my daughter to grow up in a society like this. Why was it so important for you take that on yourself? And why does representation matter for kids in general in our society?
Well, that is so great. Thank you for sharing that about your roommate and how that really impacted him. I think for minority communities, I think that we've all had that experience. I think for the Black community, like the Black Panther was that experience for us, like it was with the Crazy Rich Asians. So I think for me to take it on, it was risky because I had thought about writing a children's book before I had my daughter, but what was holding me back was just the way the industry is. It's very tough to break in. And also, from a self publishing standpoint, I was really apprehensive about the illustration part of it because in traditional publishing, your illustrators usually get 60% of your sales, and I was not, as a self-published author, you don't make a lot of money. And so I was really apprehensive about taking on that type of responsibility. Like I felt like, okay, I cannot really guarantee the amount of sales that would generate a 60% royalty for someone that would make it attractive. So that's what shied me away from it for many years. But as I saw this need, I felt like, okay, I have to figure this out. So I just took it upon myself, just being from a minority community, being an African American person, and it became personal to me, because I think sometimes when larger issues are looming in our society, you do have a heart of compassion for it. But I think once it becomes personal, it kind of deepens your commitment. So I think the seed was there for me, but when it became personal and I actually had a child that could be impacted by this kind of lack of diverse books available, it pushed me to say, okay, you have to do something, you have to figure it out. And I think if I wasn't a self-published author, maybe I would have been a part of the activism that would just write letters or try to make people aware. But because I felt like, okay, I have a responsibility here. I know how to write and publish books. So I can't just sit on the sidelines and just complain about this. I'm really empowered to make a difference. And so that's why I took the responsibility on. And I knew that it would be hard and that I wouldn't receive commercial success because I don't have the large publishing companies behind me. But I just felt compelled, like the purpose was so important that, the rest would come. And so, yeah, just seeing kids, like I go to my daughter's school every year for her career day and I interact with the children and I read the books to them, and just seeing how much they enjoy these books, how much they love them, that makes it so worth it. And the commitment to keep the series going, those kids really motivated me as well, because now they remember who I am. And so when I come, they're like, hey, we know you from last year. And I think this past year I went and I brought one of my books from last year and I brought my new book, and they were like, oh, we remember that book from last year. And so it made me think like, uh-oh, I got to stay on top of my game here, because these kids, they're paying attention and they're looking and they know like, oh no, we don't want last year's. What do you have this year? And so I think that just that part of it, is personal. And then also reaching out to these other children and seeing how they're being impacted by it in a positive way. That's what motivates me to continue in my responsibility and in what I've committed to do. And it's so worth it. I mean, for these children to live a good life and for them to have joy and happiness in their lives, I think that we, definitely should continue to do everything that we can to help them. Because, as you know, when they become adults like us, they have all these other problems and issues and challenges that we have to deal with. So I think that striving to make their lives fun and happy and to teach them how to celebrate diversity will definitely help them in the long run. I know it has enriched my life. Having a diverse group of friends, working in environments where there are people from all different backgrounds, that is the best thing that could ever happen to me. And it brings me so much joy. And I would never want to deny anyone of any race or ethnicity that opportunity to just share in the joy of being among other people and sharing their differences and all of us coming together for common causes. So the more we can enrich kids' lives and with those messages and put them on that path towards diversity early on, I think we make life a lot better for them as they continue to grow. And so those are the reasons why I'm doing it, and it's definitely helping me as well. I get a lot of joy out of it, and it's tons of fun.
So I'm going to actually bring it back to business a little bit and compliment you on using subject matter experts, using your daughter as you're writing a children's book. Hey, we really need friends in there. But back to the book. So as you're writing these books and as she's getting older and you're putting friends in there, are you drawing from her real friendships or her school to for the characters? And do you get permission from the kids, or is it like I know that's little Johnny, or I know that's Avery, or something along those lines?
Yes, that's a great question. I haven't used the real friends just for those reasons, like you said, with the permission. But I do have different kids from different ethnicities, Black children, white children, Asian children. And so the kids do see themselves in the books, and they are recognizing the diversity. But yeah, I would have to get the permissions and with the parents and signing releases. And also the money aspect is something that is of a concern to me, because with being a self-published author, your sales and your revenue is variable. And like Austin was saying, it may go up during the holiday season and then you may have a lull. And so those types of things, I just have to make sure that I set expectations and I'm very clear with people if they join or partner with me, because the royalties, can be very volatile with the book industry. And so, yeah, I try to keep it really low key. And like with my illustrator, I just pay him outright for the services. And I also give him, of course, illustration credit, but I definitely own my own copyright. And there's no royalty agreement, just because the revenue is just not there. But I think, if I ever grow to that point in the future, I would definitely get the right subject matter experts, as you said, to work on those types of agreements. But book publishing, I think, is challenging for traditional publishers as well as independents, because it's just based on people's tastes and their preferences, and it's a very difficult industry to predict. And so I would say you just have to be really committed, and you have to be ready to kind of ride that wild ride of the business fluctuation when it comes to your books. So it's something that you'll have to consider and look at your investment. And for me, over the years, like I've been doing it for more than 10 years, over the years, I've had those low points where like the first book I published, it's not as popular anymore, so I don't get the sales from it. And sometimes you just wonder, like, man, should I put another one out there? But I think the mission and the purpose for the books kind of outright outweigh the profit. And one thing I did do also, just speaking from a business perspective, right after I published my first book, which was the community history book, I created a nonprofit organization. And so that has helped me out tremendously, because I publish under the nonprofit, and that helps to kind of counterbalance some of the lack of profit that I receive. And it also helps me to go out and do like the book fairs and the different charitable events and charitable giving, as well as donating books, which is something that we want to step up with the children's books. And so from a business perspective, yes, I think, if you're planning to write a book, you definitely want to look at your plan, how much you put in, how much profit you want to gain, how much you're willing to invest in your social media advertising, and so forth. And then realize you may be upside down for a few years before you generate a profit. And you may even want to consider doing it as a part of your philanthropy or your community outreach and giving, if you have something like that for yourself or for your family.
Is there a book out there right now that you wish you had written?
Oh, wow, that is a great question. Well, I was thinking about that recently about writing a book from a child's perspective, because I think the way I grew up, we were what they call latchkey kids, where most of the parents were working parents. Like there was a time, when moms were home and or grandparents were home with kids. But as times continue to evolve and change, more parents were working and kids were home alone after school. So I'm a part of that generation where they called us the latchkey kids, because we would come home after school and we would lock up the house, and your parents would be like, "Don't let anybody in until I get home." And that's one book that I wouldn't mind writing just from that perspective, because I don't think people realize that we grew up so independent and we were kind of on our own at a very young age. And so I think we have a different mindset about how we approach everything in life, whereas our kids don't have that experience. Like their parents are always available, we're always there, we're nurturing, we're making sure they're taken care of. But I think for us, we were definitely like on our own. So that's a book that I'm hoping to write someday about how it was in this world where adults really didn't really think about kids as much. We weren't focused on as much as they are now, because now people realize, oh, they remember all these experiences. Oh, we need to take care of them. We need to make sure they're growing. But for us, that wasn't the case. We were just more like, hey, take care of this, don't burn down the house, and I'll see you later. So I'm definitely anxious to get something out there for myself and my peers, so we could kind of reminisce and remember how we all grew up and we survived.
I think it's interesting you say that, because as a father with a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, I'm trying to walk that delicate balance of hovering too much, or just, unless I see blood, bone, or brain, you're good. Rub some dirt on it and pick yourself up. And so I think that would be an interesting book, and always looking forward to it. And I think that, the world's greatest social experiment is taking place right now, with all the education taking place at home. And how is society going to affect? And unfortunately, we're not going to know for 20, 30, 40 years from now. So I think I'm anxiously looking forward to that book, Allyson.
Yes, that's wonderful. I'm surprised that, because I'm raising a child myself, I'm surprised that we survived, because some of the things that we have to do as parents, sometimes I'm so shocked. I'm like, we didn't wear helmets, and we didn't we didn't even wear seat belts. So no car seats. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just so grateful to be alive right now.
Definitely a different era that we're living in, and I think you're doing a great job, Allyson, of making the world a better place. I think your books are just amazing. I think you're a rock star, and I definitely encourage everyone that is listening to the podcast or watching it on YouTube to go out, buy your books, learn about Ava and her growth, and the story that Allyson tells. It's just absolutely amazing. But Allyson, I do want to thank you so much for joining us on the Business Communicators podcast this week. And for those out there, maybe they want to connect with you on social media, or maybe learn more about your books, or maybe even how to write and get started. What is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yes. You can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn under Allyson Neal. And all my contact information is there, my email, phone. I'd love to connect with everyone. And Can't thank you guys enough for having me on. I really appreciate it. I think you guys are all wonderful communicators. I've admired you all for many years, and I'm so proud of what you're doing to continue to push our industry forward and to grow and evolve as we're dealing with these challenges. I think this is amazing, and just encourage you guys to just keep up the great work, and I'm happy to help you in any way. And of course, if you want to write a book, you know who to contact. So
It's been absolutely wonderful having you. And we are also going to invite you to stick around for the rest of the conversation because, like us, you are heavily involved with communications and, you've got ideas. We want to hear your thoughts on some of these topics as well. But moving on to another topic, and we'll keep this brief, but we don't want to dive too much into politics here on the show this week. We know everyone's had a very tumultuous week with the election that happened last week, but there was something interesting that I found on CNN. And many of you have probably heard of meditation apps that you can buy in the iTunes store or the Android store. Calm, they are a company that has one of the top apps for relaxation, for meditation. And I thought it was kind of hilarious, but also brilliant from a marketing perspective that Calm sponsored the election results on CNN. And so many people were talking about it on social media. They were trending. It just made total sense. And it was kind of like what people needed at the time. But I don't know. I just thought it was brilliant product placement. And I am curious from y'all's perspective, what have been other brilliant product placements that you've seen, at major events, maybe major campaigns? Thomas, I'll go ahead and start with you.
It's interesting because we talk product placement, we talk sponsorships. This is not a new concept. Pro sports, you see it a lot. Can't go to a game and not see half dozen different ads around it. Stadiums are named after it. Big dollars on sponsoring college athletics. I think the Olympics has been a little interesting on how they try to keep some of the sponsorships out. So like some of the jerseys from the different countries, they used to cover up like the Nike swoosh or the other ones along those lines. It's always right place, right time. Does this help sell our product? But also with it, I think one of the challenges that marketers or advertisers face is what's the return on investment there? Because the measurement is so loosey-goosey. Is it a brand building or is it a direct sales thing? The numbers guy in me comes out saying, yeah, you can show that. It's not easy and it's very loose. So the finance people kind of get a little worried about that. I remember a movie a couple years ago, a documentary of the greatest movie ever sold, where they went out and they tried to find sponsors before they wrote the movie script, totally not, and it wasn't making fun of the sponsorship industry. It was more education of this is how we're doing this and This is what we're doing. And it's an old movie. If you're not an advertising or marketing geek, you probably won't really like it. And even if you are, you probably won't really like it either, because it kind of as a movie sense from it. So I think it's real interesting that you can sponsor so minuscule things. Even as parents who have kids who play sports, our Little League baseball teams, our soccer teams have sponsorships, whether it's the car dealership down the road or the dentist. I remember playing sports and seeing the billboards out in the background. And reality is just trying to get where your audience is. I would like to see the results of how many downloads came or how many downloads are still coming since the election's still going on. And so I think it's real interesting. And I was actually going to want to ask Allyson, like, hey, have you thought about throwing in a sponsorship ad into like, hey, this product is brought to you by Coca-Cola or something along those lines to, increase the revenue side of it?
Yes, I think that's a wonderful idea. And it's probably something that I should explore. With that Calm ad, I think that was ingenious. I'm like you, Thomas. I would love to see if they had an increase in downloads and, kind of what was the result of their investment into that. But I do think that was brilliant and it was timely because people are so nervous and also on edge and very stressed out. And so a lot of people really didn't even want to view the elections or the election results. I think it was a lot of dread because we didn't know what to expect and what would happen. And so just that, from that perspective, yes, I think it was a brilliant idea, and I would love to see how their numbers turned out. And I think for as far as campaigns, what brings comes to my mind is the NBA recently with their Black Lives Matter campaign. I think that they've been doing a really great job with promoting that consistently throughout their kind of bubble season. It's been different. I think that, of course, it's helping the movement, it's helping with social awareness, but I also think that it helped with viewership. I think it helped their base and their fan base to tune in and to watch and support them because they took this social stand and they had these jerseys branded and they were consistent and everyone on the teams were wearing it. I think it was a dual benefit for them. And I know that I paid particular attention to some of the games because of some of the branding that they were doing around their feelings about Black Lives Matter and their social activism. It really piqued my interest, and it did make me watch a few more games because I felt like, okay, I'm watching not just because I'm a fan or I love basketball, but now they're really talking about how they want to put a spotlight on some of these injustices. So I felt like I was supporting a cause as well as, watching these basketball games. And so I think these types of partnerships and sponsorships are definitely beneficial and very, very innovative. So thanks for the tip. I'm definitely going to start looking at that.
I hate to admit it, but I am addicted to TikTok. I think the quarantine has sort of made me more attached to the phone, more attached to that short media. And you mentioned the NBA, probably about 2 months ago when, the NBA was still in the bubble. There was a white TikToker and he made a very bold claim at first. And he was like, I don't like seeing all these social justice names on the back of a jersey. And you start watching it and you're like, oh gosh, where is this going? And his response is, because now I don't know who's on the court. And he's like, it's really awkward when I'm saying, what are you doing, equality? Why did you do that? Stop doing the turnover and racism. So I'm obviously not delivering it as well as the TikTok did, but it was just kind of funny to see all the reaction videos to that, to see people kind of duetting in TikTok and like, whoa, where is this guy going? And then, just kind of start laughing as a result of it. But I do think the NBA did an incredible job. And I actually mentioned this on a call Friday morning after the election that they did a great job getting voters to turn out in 2020, using the arenas to either hold polling sites or ballot drop-offs. And I think that was incredible for voter turnout. We had the highest voter turnout since 1900. And that was all during a pandemic, which is just remarkable. So I don't care who you voted for. I don't care which side. I mean, half the country split. We're never going to change that. But the fact that many people turned out to vote, it's incredible.
Well, for me, very quickly, product placement, I like mindless entertainment. And if you're a fan of Sex and the City, Carrie Bradshaw made Milano Blahnik very famous. I don't know if you saw the movie or not, but if you did see it, remember the scene where Big, instead of giving Carrie a ring, he held up the blue Milano Blahnik shoe to propose to her. And I really believe that really helped make him, and they said helped make him a household name. But Sex and the City, for me, they made so many fashion designers and celebrities household names by using their products, placing their products or whatever in the movies and as well as the TV series. So that was brilliant for me.
I'm going to echo on the brilliant side of it. Stranger Things comes to mind, the Netflix show Stranger Things.
The waffles.
Where they show that, where they're actually going back saying that the product placement's worth about $15 million and everything like that. But I think what they did was so brilliant was because it was kind of looking back at time in the 80s. And so if you were going to sponsor the show, you had to show the product as it looked in the 80s. So it was like the Coca-Cola can from the 80s. It was the shirts from the 80s. And so it wasn't a modern take on it. It was, this is the way it is. Um, and these sponsorship things is much like commercials. As we enjoy the entertainment, we enjoy to look back at it, and a lot of this would not take place if it wasn't for the advertising dollars and the sponsorship. So call out to our sponsors.
Yeah, Pierpont and Mykrantz and Co. We definitely thank you for sponsoring the podcast. IBC Houston, you guys do great work. But I think product placement at the end of the day is just if done well, it can be incredibly effective. Calm, amazing job. I think back to like the camcorders in the 1980s that were just coming out, and seeing them in Back to the Future. I mean, that really helped elevate that. Marquez Brownlee, who's one of my favorite YouTubers, dissects that in one of his first like retro tech videos. So yeah, if done right, it could be incredibly effective. But we're not necessarily going to talk about product placement, but what some brands are doing amidst the pandemic and what's going on globally. Right now, over in the UK and much of Europe, we're starting to see more lockdowns as a result of COVID-19. And a lot of countries are doing this so they can hope to preserve the holiday season. And so hopefully the infections are a little bit lower. People can celebrate with their families. And Burger King actually put out an ad that I thought was interesting. It said, "Buy McDonald's." And it's, they open up by saying, sure, it's a little bit weird that we're talking about our competitors, KFC, McDonald's, Wendy's, so on and so forth. And then it goes on to suggest why people should continue to support the industry and continue to support even their competitors, whether it's, using Uber Eats or Grubhub or whatever delivery platform you have. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I hadn't really seen that before. Usually it's companies going back and forth. We've seen Pepsi ads that knock Coca-Cola. We've seen Chevy ads that knock Ford, but this was different. Hattie, what was your take on the Burger King ad campaign? Was it effective, or was it just kind of a misplay?
I think it remains to be seen whether it's effective or not based on sales. The one thing I do see it for is, given all the chaos, the uncivilized manner that people are acting, I like the fact that there's a competitor out there, promoting someone else. They're unified in that, because you also got to think about economics, people who their jobs are suffering, their products are in need of, you need consumers. So they're using it, to me, as a platform to kind of bring people together and show a little bit of civilization there, because we're hurting for that right now more than ever, as
Amen.
far as I'm concerned.
I do think it's interesting how Burger King has just shifted, though, because, they used to attack McDonald's. McDonald's would attack Burger King. Wendy's would attack them all. I was actually in Australia back in 2005, and I had no idea that there was this company called Hungry Jack's. And if you're not familiar with Hungry Jack's, when Hungry Jack's or Burger King came over to Australia, they apparently did market research and flopped early on. And sales for McDonald's actually increased because Australians historically like the underdog and they cheer for the underdog. And when you come with a name like Burger King, people assume you're the best, that you are the cream of the crop. And so people started going to McDonald's more, and it increased their sales. So Burger King actually rebranded in Australia, and they changed their name to Hungry Jack's. So they have the same logo, it's just a different name. They still have the Whopper, all of that. So I think they have been creative in the past. And I do think this is kind of creative now to, maybe put competition inside, but for the betterment of their industry.
Normally, I'd say, in advertising, we're trying to steal market share. We're trying to steal this. We're trying to steal that. What really caught me, and I'm going to actually read part of the ad, is we never thought we'd be asking you to do this, but restaurants employing thousands of staff really need your support at this moment. So if you want to help, keep treating yourself to tasty meals through home delivery, takeaway, or drive-through. Getting a Whopper is always the best, but ordering a Big Mac is not such a bad thing. And thanks. And so I think that it is really good that it's showing that, hey, the restaurant industry, the service industry needs help, not just for us trying to steal market share or to increase our coffers. But I also think that it's doing good because we're talking about it. It's keeping it relevant. It's not just an advertisement. It's also a PR play. So as we move forward in this new world, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I read an article yesterday, I think, that was talking about how the fast food breakfasts are just taking a beating so much, where they're talking about removing them from the items because there's no more commute to the office. There's no more hungry, screaming kids as you're trying to drop them off at school 5 minutes late to breakfast. And so this is one that is good. It reaches across. It's hey, we're all into this together. Let's help each other out. And personally, I think a Whopper tastes completely different than a Big Mac. Some days I'm craving one, and some days I'm craving the other. It just really depends.
Yes, I would say the same thing. I think from a consumer perspective, we all view these industry, these restaurants pretty much as the same. I think we view them as like our resource and diversity, because we're not going to all eat the same fast food all the time. We crave diversity, and it's just a part of our culture that we like to try new things, and we want to eat different foods and have different flavors. So I think that was very insightful of them to really promote the entire industry as a whole, because we're all patronizing these various restaurants. Even though we may have one as a favorite, we pretty much support all of them. And so I think it's a great idea that they're coming together to support one another, especially during these tough times, hoping that the industry itself can weather the storm. And I think other industries are doing the same. We're seeing a lot in oil and gas and other industries where people are just coming together to share their common pain and challenges in the hopes that they can support one another and rally together and save the industry as a whole. Because if they lose the market share collectively, it hurts everyone. But if they all can survive, I think that healthy competition will keep their industries alive. So hopefully everybody can weather this storm.
Absolutely. I think it's important to pivot, to be able to adapt as the market changes, and to stay on top of things. I do want to mention one other Burger King, since we're on the Burger King topic, but I think they have had a brilliant marketing strategy. Back in January of 2019, they actually launched a campaign in which they were going through and liking influencers' old post on Twitter. And we're not talking like, a year before or 2 years before. They were going back to 2010 and liking all of these influencers' posts. And all of these influencers were looking at their phones like, what is going on? Why is Burger King liking a post from 9 years ago? So they started talking about it on social media. And then Burger King unveiled another strategy of, I guess, bringing back a fan favorite from 2010 on one of their menus. And so I think that was an incredibly interesting strategy. Casey Neistat, who is a YouTuber, very influential person, does a lot of brand marketing, had his own show on HBO. He said this after, I guess a lot of influencers were a little upset that Burger King was using them without paying them. But he said, us influencers, we're not brain surgeons or rocket scientists. It's not nice to manipulate us into hawking or sugar-coated French fries. The thing that upsets me the most is just how genius it was. We all were the little mice. We all went in for the cheese and the trap, and it snapped on us. You win, Burger King. Whoever you hired to come up with this should get a raise. So Burger King, I think, are doing a great job now in terms of getting people to talk about them. They did a great job in 2019. So just hats off to marketers out there that are doing an amazing job when it comes to advertising.
Well, and I want to talk about historically, we're in Texas, so we think all Texas brands are the best. And there was a brand called Whataburger that was bought by another company up in Chicago area. And there's a little restaurant, a little Mexican food restaurant in Austin called El Arroyo. Actually really good Mexican food. So if you're ever there, pro tip, go order there. But they're notorious for putting out funny signs, kind of like the signs you saw the competition between the Wendy's and the Subways, or Wendy's and the Arby's. But one of the signs said right after, like literally within 24 hours of the sale going through, it said, "Dear Chicago, take care of her or we'll kill you." So I think there is some of that. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
We're in the restaurants. While we do compete against each other, we all have to play in the same sandbox.
Well, I think this episode has been a lot of fun. We started on a great note. Having Allyson join us and discuss her new book. I thought it was great to hear her perspective. And I would encourage everyone listening on iTunes or Spotify, or whether you're watching on YouTube, click the link in the show notes below. go check out her Amazon page. And, if you're looking for a holiday gift, consider one of the many books that she's written. I think it's just great work that she's doing. Also, be sure to connect with her on LinkedIn, for any other questions that you have as well. And then, of course, wrapping the show out with just a little lighthearted conversation on advertising. I'm a little hungry now as I'm recording this. I don't know that I'm going to go to Burger King, but maybe Chick-fil-A is on the menu. I don't know. But guys, it was really a lot of fun to come together for another episode of the Business Communicators. And Hattie, any parting words?
This is really, really fun. I am so glad, Allyson, that you were able to join us. This has been a really cool conversation, and it ended everything on the high note. So I'm looking forward to the weekend now.
It's having 2 kids at home and working from home has definitely made the days blend together. But as the high note comes together, do your research, get to know each other, love each other, have some fun. That's all I got to say is have fun. I've been having a blast since Austin invited me on here for season 1. And then when he asked me to host, I'm having fun as we go through the different conversations.
Have fun in 2020. I think that's the takeaway. Even though the year hasn't gone as we all would have liked, we've got to make the best of it at the end of the day. We've got to come together. We've got to rally. And I can't tell you how much fun I have with you, Hattie, with you, Thomas, and today having Allyson on the show. I think it's just so fun to have conversation, to be able to see you on my screen right now. It's just absolutely wonderful. So we hope that everyone listening enjoyed today's episode of the podcast. And again, we encourage you, if you're not doing so already, follow us on iTunes, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. That really helps us out. Also check us out on social media. You can, find the podcast on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, as well as Instagram. And if you want to give us feedback, we really encourage that, ideally in a 5-star review. But if you don't want to do that, shoot us an email, podcast@ibchouston.com, or you can text podcast to 713-360-0133. That's podcast to 713-360-0133. But it's been an amazing week. I hope everyone listening has an amazing week ahead of them. And on behalf of our guests today, Allyson Neal, and my co-host, Hattie Horn and Thomas Bain, my name is Austin Staton, and we'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the Business Communicators. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram @BizCommunicator, and find out more about our chapter at iabchouston.com. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review.